Today, in Us 24, we meet a director who made a 28-day journey on foot through the mountains to cross the border and flee Iran illegally. Days later, he was at the Cannes Film Festival to present his latest feature, The Seed of the Sacred Fig.
تو این 20 سالی که من با باباتون هستم همیشه آرزو داشتی همچین روزی برسه.
خب الانم که قاضی تحقیقات شده این خطرها هست دیگه.
آفرین بابا جون.
Mohammad Rasoulof chose to escape the regime in Iran when they announced he was being sentenced to prison again. Mohammad Rasoulof, hello. Thank you for being with us. First, can you explain to us why you had to flee Iran?
For many years, I was under a lot of pressure, oppressed, if you like. But despite all that, I decided to stay in my country, close to the society I loved and was attached to, and to continue making my films. But the result of this stubbornness was that I was sentenced to jail time, lashes, and I was persecuted by the Iranian secret services. When I was sentenced to 8 years in prison, I asked myself whether I wanted to stay in Iran or whether I'd rather carry on being a filmmaker. Of course, I could have gone to prison and accepted my status as a martyr of filmmaking and as a victim. But for me, being a victim was unacceptable. I prefer being a filmmaker. I wanted to give myself the means to continue working.
You left everything behind and took a lot of risks. Tell us how you escaped.
I have to say that one of the advantages of being in prison is that you meet people who can help you leave the country in secret. While I was there, several prisoners told me, "The day you decide to escape, tell us and we can help you." So I said goodbye to my plants at home, looked out of the window, and then embarked on this rather long crossing. Once I was in the mountains, looking out over my homeland, I said to myself that I'd return one day. And I'm still convinced that I will.
The Seed of the Sacred Fig echoes the woman life freedom movement that swept Iran after the death of Mahsa Amini on the 16th of September 2022, following a violent arrest by police for wearing a headscarf incorrectly.
تو هم شعار دادی؟
شعار دادم سریعا در آوردم.
When the women life freedom movement began, I was in prison, and it was a strange experience trying to keep up with societal developments from inside. One day, a delegation from the judicial authorities and prison officials came to the cell we were in to examine the condition of a political prisoner. And one of them discreetly came up to me, took a pen out of his pocket, gave it to me, and told me that he felt really bad, really ashamed to be working in this system. And he said that every day, as he walked past the prison, he thought about the moment when he would hang himself on that very spot. He was constantly being questioned by his children, who asked him, "What are you doing in that prison?" This ordeal of being challenged by his children was very difficult for him. That conversation was the trigger for me, and I wrote the story of a family who experiences this gulf between two generations.
بعد تو از یه سری اوباشی که تمام مسئلهشون لخ شدن تو خیابونه حمایت میکنی؟
کی میخواد لخ شه؟ من کی از لخ شدن
همینایی که کف خیابونن.
کیا بابا؟ من خودم دیروز تصادفاً تو همین شلوغیا بودم.
تو بیجا کردی؟
اتفاقی اونجا کاری نمی‌کردیم. با دوستان داشتیم از دانشگاه برمیگشتیم.
یهو با گوله ساچمه‌ای زدن تو صورتش. بعدش هم ریختن تو خوابگاه گرفتنش.
Not all members of the film crew were able to flee Iran. At Cannes, where he received a special prize, Mohammad Rasoulof took advantage of his time on the red carpet to hold up portraits of two of his actors who had stayed behind, Misak Zareh and Soheila Golestani. You've talked about your concern for your crew who stayed in Iran. Tell us about the risks and more generally the risks faced by artists who oppose the regime.
When news of the film's existence leaked, and it was selected for the Cannes Film Festival, my collaborators were harassed and taken in for questioning. My cinematographer had his office raided. My sound engineer had his passport confiscated. So they were really pressured to ask me to withdraw my film from Cannes. Obviously, neither of them told me about this request, but I was always worried about my crew. Fortunately, the girls who play the three young women were able to leave Iran. But the others are still there. And I'm familiar with the Islamic Republic's technique of hanging a sword of Damocles over the heads of artists, saying, if you move, we'll cut your head off. But I think the censorship system in Iran has really reached a dead end. And there are many young artists, many young filmmakers who continue to try to choose how they express themselves and get the freedom they need.
It's such a beautiful movie. How did you create such a masterpiece in secret?
Every time I see the film, I ask myself to what extent it's the film that I'd hoped for. I always have a feeling of dissatisfaction, of frustration, of thinking that all the pressure I was under perhaps distracted me and affected my artistic vision. I really wanted to work longer on the script and not be in such a rush. But maybe at the same time, those constraints give the film a certain shape. Maybe if I'd worked under more conventional conditions, the film would have turned out quite differently.
You use videos from social networks to show the demonstrations and the violence in Tehran. How important are these cell phones videos in the fight against the regime?
At the time the events took place, I was in prison. And so as soon as I was released, I felt the urgency, the need to go and see what was going on. So as soon as I could, I went on the internet to do some research, and I was very impressed by the audacity, the extraordinary courage of these young girls. And I'll never forget the impact those images had on me. And that's why I included them in my film. Young men and women were able to use their phones to capture images of this violence, of the cruelty of the government, and share them with others. And that's why the Islamic Republic keeps cutting off the internet to prevent young people from coming together. But it has no effect on them, because they don't accept the shackles that the regime is putting them in.
Mohammad Rasoulov's cinema has always criticized the religious stranglehold in Iran. In 2017, a man of integrity, his film about the ravages of corruption earned him a 2-year stint in prison and a ban on leaving the country. 3 years later, he was awarded the Golden Bear at the Berlinale for There Is No Evil, which talks about the death penalty. Under house arrest in Iran at the time, Rasoulof asked his daughter to accept the prize on his behalf. In the film, you show the contradiction within the civil service. Do you think that people within the regime could bring it down?
I can't make precise predictions, but I can tell you that this minority, the ones who are running the country, it's getting smaller every day, and many people who once supported the regime ideologically have now realized that the system is a brutal, criminal system that uses them as pawns.
How do you plan to continue the fight now you have left your country?
The most important thing I can do is tell the stories I've collected in my heart. That's why I left Iran. It's the duty I chose to fulfill. To continue working. Of course, for me, it's a huge challenge. To manage to do that in these conditions, to tell stories that build a bridge between my people and the world, and that bring people closer together.
Mohammad Rasoulof, good luck, and thank you for being with us.
نگرانی خانوادت بفهمن چی کاره ای؟ میدونستی بابا تو قاتله؟
تو خونه خودم احساس ناامنی میکنم.